Alright, so I've been off for 2 weeks now, which, to be honest, is a lot more time than I really needed, but I did get some behind the scenes graphics work done and, far more importantly, played a copious amount of Alan Wake 2. I'm very happy to say that it is, and I say this unironically unlike most others, genuinely peak fiction. Remedy Entertainment is in a league of their own when it comes to atmosphere in their games, and as someone who thinks that atmosphere and indescribable vibes will always be the biggest differentiator between a game of the year and a game of the generation, it makes them highly suited to making games seemingly custom built to appeal to me specifically. Now, let's talk about my schedule. I have 2 more previews coming up, the one covered in today's video and one sent to me by Luigi Bud. Then I'll be covering the chaotics in separate videos for each member, as seeing how complex they are, they seem to require one each. And then I'll be doing a lot of Remedy stuff, because by that point I should have graphics at the point I can use them, and I'll be able to talk about stuff occurring in Alan Wake 2 without constant spoiler warnings. For now though, here's a preview of Sketchzelle, sent to me by a creator of the same name. Let's get into it. So, straight off the bat, Sketchzelle isn't necessarily a well-balanced character. He has 3 abilities, 2 for vertical traversal and 1 for horizontal travel, and while they are a bit finicky to use, they all make up for it by being pretty powerful. We'll start off with the air drill, which is really the wrong name to give to an ability that acts as a higher jump, launching you in an arc that travels relatively high. Due to a lack of other abilities to combo it with and with little versatility, it is effectively limited to where you can directly reach with the jump, so nothing completely crazy can be done with it, but you can still make it over many of the obstacles in the game and avoid a lot of platforming using it. You can use it to avoid this platforming section in Deep Sea, as an example, or to account for some pretty big missed jumps, like this one in Castle Eggman. It can be a bit hard to get to grips with using it though, because of how perfect the arc shape is. With most abilities in SRB2, they tend to have a general path they'll follow, but depending on factors like how fast you're going or how long you hold down the relevant button, or any number of other inputs, the ability will change accordingly. The air drill will always travel in an arc the same shape and height, disregarding movement from side to side from the equation, regardless of the speed and yada 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 that occurs before using the ability, which I found to be initially a little disorientating. As I did mention just then, you can move side to side when using the ability after a very short period when you initiate the ability, which also took me a little while to get used to, so it isn't completely rigid, as that would definitely move the limitations from strange and a bit confusing to nonsensical and outright frustrating. I would say it could be interesting to mess around a little with holding the jump button, changing the properties of the air drill, so maybe tapping it will make it act as it does now, while holding it causes it to have a wider below arc. Indeed, that is sort of what Sketchzelle's second ability, the hyperspin, acts like, though that is a bit more powerful than what I envisaged for that. Again, the name is sort of meaningless here, as you do not spin at any point during the ability, and it is actually more of just a horizontal launch, though the hyper part of the name does just about begin to describe the sheer speed and distance the ability can reach. The description claims that Sketchzelle is catapulted accidentally, though I don't know what that is referring to. I certainly didn't accidentally mean to press spin and launch Sketchzelle this far. Perhaps that refers to some in-game lore about the ability? Though to be launched that far without any build-up, I can only guess that Sketchzelle accidentally ate a number of explosive devices and is accidentally letting them go off as they exit the body. Look, what I'm trying to say here is that the hyperspin goes ridiculously far. Ever pulled off a backwards long jump in Mario 64? I haven't, but I have used one of these hyperspins to skip most of the opening water segment of Deep Sea 2, so I feel I understand what it's like to use one. It can also be used to break objects, though that isn't actually all that useful for Sketchzelle. The air drill isn't enough to get him through most of Knuckles' paths, so you don't need to get into them, and the hyperspin isn't accurate enough to hit enemies or monsters in stages, or to hit Amy Floor to enter her paths, which Sketchzelle probably could get through most of. What it can be good for is hitting bosses, as it's sort of like the ultimate thock, allowing you to move from one side of the arena to the other in seconds, and therefore taking out bosses with ease. Sketchzelle does have one more ability, though it actually isn't mentioned on their ability list. It's the Stomp. No changes to what you expect, drop down quickly when pressing spin in the air, destroy stuff underneath you. I'm mostly used in conjunction with the air drill to be honest, though maybe when the mod releases to the public, you might want to see how it works in tandem with some of their other moves. The only other thing to mention with Sketchzelle is some of their quirks. The first one is fair enough, seeing as they're apparently made of paper. They are very light, which just translates in my experience to having a higher jump than normal. The other quirk, which I assume isn't related to the lightness and paper thing, is that Sketchzelle is slightly shorter than normal. I don't think they're short enough to get through crawl spaces, but they are definitely short enough to fit underneath the chain launchers in Castle Eggman. It's really annoying having to try and time jumps to land in one of the chains. Can Sketchzelle's height just be increased slightly to go straight into them like normal? The sprites seem to match up. Or, well, I probably need to address the elephant in the room at some point about this mod. Yes, Sketchzelle sprites are clearly a long way from being done, and to fill in the, 75% at least of sprites that aren't done, the answer was to plop in the relevant Sonic sprite, with an orange skin applied. Does it look particularly good? No, especially when not all the sprites in a turnaround are done, so there's just constant switching between the two from one frame to the next. I've used the term sprite to refer to a faux turnaround in the past, so when I'm saying I don't know whether any of Sketchzelle's sprites are completely finished, I mean I don't know whether they have a full set of turnarounds completed. Even outside of that, Sketchzelle does have a level of MS Paint energy when their sprites actually do appear, which can be endearing sometimes, but I've gone through too many previews with that style by this point, and I'm beginning to run out of goodwill for it, especially when many of the characters don't seem particularly humorous to explain it beyond devs just not having much experience in spriting to come up with more professional sprites. I'm just going to say this to cap off. I can't wait to download the Chaotix and be able to experience some high level sprite work again that hasn't been ripped from something else. Overall, it was fun getting back to a character with a little more versatility than what I've been covering in the last few previews. They all felt a little grounded, and getting to play as a character who had some verticality meant I could do a little more of the old tricks, skipping platforming, taking advantage of every ability, you know the drills. Sketchzelle can be a little finicky to play, and I mean, they're not even Sketchzelle for most of the time you're playing, but they have a strong foundation to work with, which could turn into something good in the future. I have one more preview booked for next episode. You could say I have one more left in me, and you would be right. Any more and I would be crying on my desk waiting for the day I can finally get back to full releases. As it is, I hope you enjoyed the video, and ciao.